We're glad you could join us. I want to be sure I hit that recording button before we started. I'm Sylvia Oberle. I'm part of the planning team here at Knollwood Baptist Church for Faith in the City. And we're so glad that you could join us for this month's session. Once again, we welcome you to these monthly conversations in which we are focusing on educational inequities for many students and families. We appreciate your continued interest and involvement and suggestions for these topics, and the many presenters that have challenged us with their information and experiences. Today, we are continuing the discussion on the role of remote learning centers in bridging the gap between schools and community, and how we might use that and their experiences to build a more equitable and community-wide framework that better serves students and families, and ultimately the community at large. As we're getting started this afternoon, I would ask participants to mute yourselves, as we always say, and also to put your questions in the chat function as we go along. During our Q&A session, we will be monitoring those as well as trying to recognize participants for additional questions. Our formal session today will end at 1, as we always try to do, but we're going to be trying something new. We're going to stay online for about another 10 or 15 minutes or so for additional questions, comments, thoughts, aha moments, whatever, sort of like a virtual parking lot conversation. And we hope that this type of feedback will help generate ideas for future sessions, and because we want to stay relevant. With us today is another member of our planning team, Dean Clifford, who's going to share in our panel moderation. So let me just get right down to introducing our guest today. First, we have Carrie Woods, founder and executive director of TURN, Inc. TURN is an acronym for Through Unity, Reformation is Inevitable, simply stating that if we come together as a community, reform has to happen. TURN started in 2013 as an after-school tutoring and enrichment program, adding an 8-week summer program in 2015 and a virtual learning center in August of 2020. It serves youth within the United Way's Place Matters area who are students in the Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools and charter schools in our county. Marilyn Odom is currently Vice President of Youth Services at the YWCA Best Choice Center. Best Choice has been providing remote learning for pre-K through 8th grade students since March of 2020, when it pivoted from providing after-school care. Ms. Odom was previously employed at Smart Start of Forsyth County for 14 years as program coordinator, providing monitoring and oversight to agencies and organizations that receive Smart Start funds. And finally, Mark Batten is the new executive director of community engagement for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. He comes to the school system from Clemens Foundation, where he was program officer. Before that, he was assistant dean of admissions and strategic communications at Wake Forest School of Divinity. His role at the school system, which he'll talk more about, is to support equity by making sure that all students have the resources they need to be successful. In doing so, he will draw upon his broad connections to faith communities and other groups throughout the city. So please join me in welcoming them to our conversation today, and I'll turn it over to Dean.
And I will try to keep my remarks brief before I start asking questions of Carrie and Marilyn. I just want to be sure, since we always have new folks, that I create a little bit of context. In December, we focused in on one of the remote learning centers that had been established and opened as a new entity in a collaboration between a church and a nonprofit agency and other funders. In addition to this type of remote learning center that opened just to respond to the pandemic, we also had other remote learning centers that pre-existed, giving after school and summer programs that we wanted to hear from as they, as Sylvia indicated, pivoted to providing online assistance to students, that we wanted to hear from them as well. And so today we'll be hearing from 2 of those that were pre-existing nonprofits doing the work of assisting students. The goal of remote learning centers has really been to provide a safe place for kids during the day, especially for those whose parents worked or who needed additional tutorial assistance in accessing the online instruction of school provided by the school system, and to give them that help and to help them with technology and their needs there. And so we want to continue to hear from these remote learning centers so we can learn lessons that they're teaching us. We can maybe come up with new strategies that will continue to strengthen our school system in reducing inequities and improving school outcomes for students. In between, we heard in January from the Freedom School Network in Charlotte, because we're also interested in looking at how we can continue to strengthen and improve the quality of our remote learning centers, even as we build and expand them for the future. So perhaps that's enough background. Today, we'll really focus in on what are the educational gaps that are being filled by these remote learning centers. What is it that they do or add to what our school system does or may need assistance with? So Marilyn and Carrie, I'm going to start with a question that I will start with addressing Marilyn first, and then Carrie, and then the second question, I'll turn it the other direction. Marilyn, could you describe something about the unique experiences and stories of your remote learning center that illustrates the kind of gaps you think you fill, something that maybe is missing from the school system, something that needs strengthening? Carrie made an interesting comment to me about trying to identify what's broken or needs to be repaired in the school system, but not trying to fix things that are always going well. So what is it you think your center does that maybe meets one of those needs?
Thank you, Dean, and good afternoon, everyone. One of the things that I think the Best Choice Center does that is unique and that addresses a gap is the communication. We see parents twice a day. We see them when they bring their children in the morning, and we see them when they pick them up in the afternoon. We also have conversations and sometimes emails throughout the day. For example, if a teacher emails a parent and says their child is not in class or the child has turned the camera off, we can immediately address that. And that's one of the things that's different. Even in a class in a small setting with a teacher with a great ratio, if there's an issue, she can't stop what she's doing and call the parent. And so we can serve as a bridge between the school as well as the parent, being a remote learning center. So we're a place for the students to have academic continuation while they are exposed to their work and their teachers, because we know this continuity is really important for the students. There were a lot of students who we heard were not having the remote learning experience for one reason or another. We did not get a lot of those students. A lot of our students are kids that we already work with, or they had been referred because the parents tried as hard as they could, but they found they needed some help. So I think the fact that we are there and that we can communicate with both sides, sometimes immediately, that makes a big difference in our program and what the students receive, as well as the parents, because this is a very unusual situation for the parents also. So I think we provide a little bit of comfort in that area.
Carrie, what would you add to what Marilyn is saying about how you think you meet a gap?
Because what Marilyn has said, thank you, first of all, Dean, and thank you, Sylvia, and good morning to everyone else that's joining us. Everything that Marilyn has stated, but also I probably could put it a little bit even better. I was looking at this question and looked at two letters a mom and daughter sent. And one of the things mom has said was it was very difficult for her daughter with her schoolwork being online and missing her friends. And then when she contacted us, her daughter wrote a letter to us and says, I want to thank Turn for keeping me safe and taking care of me while my mom is working. I want to continue to come here. It's fun. Even the food is good. So I want to thank Turn and Miss C for letting me come. We do have children who's come with us during our after school program, but we also have students who's gone to not just the schools around the area, but has come from all over Forsyth County. I have them coming from Louisville and Clemens, of essential workers and non-essential workers, because parents were not able to help them, but also for charter schools. And I kind of call them our lost forgotten, because we always talk about our Winston-Salem, Forsyth County school students, but we have a lot of students that have come for our charter school. Bridging that gap, as Marilyn said, for parents and seeing them often, and also being that gap between the school and the parents by parents authorizing the teachers contact Miss C, and that's what I had them to do, because calling mom only makes it another person before you get to the problem. But if they called us directly, then we could immediately assess what's going on and get the students back on track. We've had students during this pandemic who had never been on honor roll that has made honor roll, several of them, who were struggling in a lot of areas. So working with the parents and the school system, with the teachers, letting us know if they have an issue, we're able to now go on, and the students will pull up their Power School to see what assignments that they're missing. So on Wednesdays, we can say, okay, we need to get this assignment done. And making sure that they stand on task as much as possible, which helps the parents, but also keeping the parents engaged by talking to parents and saying, hey, it's just like they're at school. If they don't complete something, they need to complete it once they get home. And then we always come back, we go up to the 8th grade. Our middle schoolers have been quite interesting, where they were not going into the classrooms, and they had several missing. One came to me who had already over, and I couldn't figure it out, over 100 and some absences when they came. And mom said, if he doesn't come, if you don't have space, I've got to quit my job. I'm resigning today. And I just said, hold on, mom, wait a minute. We're going to figure this one out. So, and it does help. It keeps parents being able to work and not have to worry about their children. We feed them 3 times a day. We cook the meals. We cook the meals on site. So we send them home for supper. They get food to go home with them in the evening time.
A quick question, just so the audience understands. I think with both of you, you are continuing your services, and some of the families have chosen to stay with you rather than send their kids back to school. Is that right?
That is correct.
And do you think that's a function of both the fact that they are worried about the health aspects, or is it more related to the trust that they have in you and the warmth of your environment?
I think both.
Both? Marilyn, how about you?
I agree. I think it's both. I'm just going to be very transparent right now and tell you all something. Back in the fall, when we thought the pandemic was going to be subsiding and kids could go back to school, I'm like, go back, everybody, go back to school. We'll see you after school. Okay, we'll see you later. And it didn't happen like that. So the parents were like, no, we have a choice. We really would prefer that they stay with you all, because we're concerned about the rising numbers, and they get more one-on-one with you. So we had to make another pivot, but I just thought it's going to be better for them to go back to school and be with their friends. They have friends at our facilities, just like it carries, but they may not necessarily be children who go to their same schools or in their same classes. So that's a lot different. But the fact that these kids are not going through that depression that some kids have been experiencing, because they are not isolated. They come in here every day. They interact, just like in Carrie's program, they interact with other students. They get to have some free time. They get to have some social time, even though they're wearing masks while they're doing it. So that's another reason the parents like what we do, and they trust us, because even though their child may not be in the regular classroom, they are still getting to interact with other students, and that has made a difference. And we've also done something to try to address mental health issues. We've gotten involved with Amos Cottage, and they've come over and done some art activities with our kids. So, and we try to give them, recreation time as much as we can. So I think parents are looking at it in both ways, from the health and safety, but also the trust factor, because we've also found some students, and Carrie may have the same experience, who do better in small groups that we have here as opposed to a classroom.
So one of the challenges we face as we continue to go forward is how we build on the expertise and the resources of the school system while making available to kids who need it more of these small group, trusting, warm environments, continuous support, social interaction. It sounds like there is a place for the remote learning centers, even as we go forward and the pandemic ends. And defining that is going to be part of the challenge. So in the past, one of our previous superintendents, I believe it was Dr. Emery, had commented that she thought schools were well equipped to handle academics, but needed the community to assist particularly with the social and emotional well-being of students, and also with family and community involvement in education. Is that something the two of you agree with? Maybe Carrie, you could start, and then Marilyn follow up with that. How do you see trust being built between your centers, your community, and parents? And how can that be, maybe in the long haul, how can you assist the school system in building that?
That's a very good question, Dean. And we work closely with Ibrahim during the academic school year, pre-pandemic. We pick up from Ibrahim, Middle Springs, and Walkertown Middle Springs Middle School. And that is mainly because we had students that were coming during the year who wanted to, parents wanted them to continue when they got to middle school instead of leaving them home unattended. One of the things that I suggested to the principal, because I've set in on their parental engagement meetings and what they can do to get the community and parents involved, is I stated to them that, first of all, they have to feel welcome when they come through the door. They have to know that they are part of their child's education, and know that their needs are going to be met, what they need. But also we have a parent meeting every 2 months where they have to, in order to be a part of Turn, parents have to come to these meetings. Some of them are engaging with different activities and some of them are informative. But I also invited the principal over, and it gives them a smaller, to have a focus group and see what it is that parents are needing, as well as letting them know what's going on with the school. If parents are not coming to PTAs, I said to the principal, then come to where they are. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the parents know what we're getting ready to do, and sometimes they're taken off guard. Thankfully, when she's come, they were ready. I've had the two previous principals over at Ibrahim to come and speak to the parents. So we open it up because we are part of the community with Community Development Corporation. So we're part of this community, and we open our doors and have the school administration to come. When we have programs, the schools are invited. The principal has come to our programs that we've had as well.
So you're serving as a bridge and building a three-way connection between your entity, the school, and the community and the parents.
Absolutely. And the parents. And we're a parent advocate. A lot of parents may come with issues that they're having, and I tell them, okay, there's a protocol. So we go through what that protocol. I will help them formulate an email to make sure that they are doing it the right way. You don't just go straight to the principal. You need to contact your teacher. You've had that conversation, send it in the email. So I work with parents. We've gone up to families' home. We have a clothing card. We happen to be on the campus of a church, Calvary Hill Church of Greater Deliverance, and they have a clothes closet as well as a food pantry. We've taken food to parents, to families, and we sit and have that conversation with parents if there's a problem with the child with behavior. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the parents will come and say, okay, Miss C, we got a problem.
Okay.
So we try as much to involve the family in everything that we're doing.
That's great. Marilyn, how about your comments about that?
I agree with what Carrie has said. I think the communication with the school personnel is a big issue. We've had a principal and some teachers to come to our facility. We serve students from across the county, so we do not have one specific school where most of our students come from. We do have a few who go to Abraham and Mineral Springs. But one of the things that Carrie said has really made the biggest difference with some of our parents feeling welcome, that they are welcomed into the school as a part of their child's education, and that it's not a punitive situation. I've had an experience a while back where some parents didn't feel comfortable going to the school or going to the principal's office because of bad experiences they had when they were younger. You know, going to the principal's office was a very negative thing. So maybe that meeting was held in the media center. Maybe it was held, you know, in the lobby where the principal could talk to the parent. And so what we've tried to do is to make parents understand that we're there for them. We're there to help support them. We have also before the pandemic, gone to IEP meetings, the parent-teacher conferences, because sometimes the parents just need support. The last IEP meeting I went to, I had to ask them to stop and to explain the acronyms. You know, they were just throwing out jargon and all of these acronyms. And although I have some knowledge, I am not a school system person, so therefore I did not know this myself. And the mom was just sitting there because I think she felt intimidated. And so what I think the school system could do a better job of is helping parents to feel more comfortable. And, you know, that's easy coming from my mouth, but I know it's a process and every school is different. But for parents to feel welcome when they come into that building, not like they're bothering somebody or they're infringing on somebody's territory, because the parents and the schools are there for the same thing, to educate the children. And what we want to do is to be supportive of that. One of my suggestions was having some type of after hours meetings where administrators could come to a facility, ours or another facility, and actually talk to parents and have a place where everybody felt comfortable in expressing themselves as a way of opening these doors of communication.
Sounds like you all are also mentoring and training parents as well as kind of walking alongside them in these situations. Let me ask one more question before we shift and hear something from the school system. What kind of support do you need from the community to continue your work? While we think having a community dialogue with Faith in the City every month is an important role we can play, we also want to not just talk, but also think about action. What can we do to help? So what do you need in order to keep doing your work? Are there any specific ways that people on this call today could help you? And I'm going to ask you, if you say yes, to be sure to put your contact information in the chat room so they can know where to send whatever help you suggest they give. We're very aware that after the pandemic is gone, we hope someday, you might want some volunteers, but right now that's off the table. So what else might you need? Do you need equipment? Do you need books? Do you need financial support to sponsor kids? What do you need? Marilyn, what's your need?
Well, the first thing I'll say is financial support. We are funded by the United Way and parent fees. We've had to increase our parent fees simply for the fact we went from 3 to 4 hours or at the maximum 3 hours a day with students, 4 hours a day with staff from the after school program. We had to go to 11-hour days. We open at 7 in the morning and we're here till 6 o'clock. And I will tell you, we have been doing this since March the 16th, and the staff has done an awesome job. Fortunately, I have not lost anybody. No one has turned in their resignation, but it is a very long day. And in the same token, it's more difficult for parents because even though we have increased the amount of financial support, they're still having to pay more. for their children to come to the program. So financial support is always needed. We increased our fees, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this because we went from $240 a month as the maximum, and we only had maybe 2 or 3 parents paying that for the after school program to $120 a week. But right now I only have 1 parent who's paying that. Everyone else is on a sliding scale. So 95, 99% of our parents are receiving scholarships, but they're still paying more. Perhaps they went from $50 a month to now $40 a week. So you can see that is a difference. So that's needed. We've received some of the financial support that came through the state, which we really appreciated. But the way we're seeing it now, our program will probably go through the end of school, and we don't know how long that financial support is going to last, and we don't want to lose anybody. And we have had parents who say, well, I just can't afford it, and said, we will work it out. We will work it out. We will find a way to lower the cost as much as we can. So I think that's the main thing that we need. Volunteers are great. We love to have reading buddies, math buddies, but right now that's just not a possibility. We had a break-in, unfortunately, this summer where we had a lot of things that were taken from our building. So we are kind of starting all over with everything from supplies in the classroom to napkins and paper towels. They even took sanitizer and Clorox wipes. I mean, we were kind of wiped out. So we really need almost anything, with the exception of books. The folk didn't take any books, so we're okay with books. But supplies, paper, pencil, markers, things of that nature. We had a great boom box. The kids love to listen to music. That was taken. So we have, kind of started over with trying to get our cupboards back in order for our children. So I would say any type of financial support would help as far as our parents being able to continue our program.
Carrie, how about you?
I echo that. It's been a tough one for us, but I was determined to make sure we were able to meet the needs of our students and families. We weren't trying to, the only reason we had to turn down is if we were at capacity. But we too are funded with parent fees as well as United Way. And there's been also a decrease in campaigning coming from our funders. So we struggle with that. Thankfully, thank God, my husband never stopped working. So I've gone a couple of months without getting paid at all because I needed to make sure that our staff was paid, which is still kind of difficult. We feed them 3 meals a day. So we've been grateful to partner with an organization in Thomasville, Greater Vision, with the Baptist Children's Home, and we've gotten donations from them for food that we cook, and we cook it here because of a bad experience that we had with the sponsor program, and we had molded juice one time, and I just didn't trust it anymore because at the end of the day, it was reflection on us. So we decided we would start doing all of our cooking in-house, and that's what we do. So making sure that we have the things that we need for that. Parents cannot pay. Our fee during the school year is really $15 a week, $45. So they went from $45 a month to we are now $40 a week. And we too have them all day as well, from 7:30 in the morning until we're supposed to close at 4:30, but we have some parents that don't get off work in time. So we do that as well. Usually we pick the children up after school, but since the pandemic, we don't use our van for that. So parents are dropping off and picking up. And we did that still for $15 a week, which was still at the bare minimum. Not even, I would say. But I said to my husband, I'm looking for another job so that I can help do this. So any financial support we can get, sponsoring a child or sponsoring the month for a child would be most helpful, whatever it is that we can get.
Okay, so you're going to put your information if they wanted to do something financially, and perhaps if you need to donate school supplies, either drop them at their site, or perhaps we can set up a drop-up box at Knollwood on the outside of our wellness center for you to leave things. We will send out some information about that if you want to donate anything in the way of school supplies. Technology, you're okay with headphones and that sort of thing?
Well, with headphones, I was in the middle of typing, I'm sorry. We purchased through 2 sets of headphones. So now we probably, out of the 40 that we purchased, I think we ended up with about 19. And then we start saying to parents, we're going to have to ask you to send them some headphones, because for whatever reason, whether the cord broke out of them or the kids taking them on and off kind of thing, they've gotten destroyed. So if we can get headphones with the mic for the teachers to hear, would be great. We take any type of, sometimes they have work that they have and they don't have pens and paper, and we go through pencils like there's no tomorrow. So anything that we could use, we would be most appreciative of it.
I echo that, because headphones have a very short life when you're dealing with children who are taking them off and putting them on every day. We have bought several pair. Most of our kids do have some, but occasionally we have to loan them some headphones. But we have a computer lab, and we had purchased headphones for our computer lab, and sometimes, they've broken or there've been other issues. So we always need to restock things of that nature.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to let Sylvia direct some of these questions toward Mark, and it may even be that some of these resources can be supplied by the school system, but we'll keep seeking that from those who participate in these calls as well.
Thank you, Dean. And certainly it's exciting to hear from you, and also I think somewhat daunting to know that there is so much need there. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences at the center. And we're glad to have a number of people on our call from the school system. In fact, as you've seen in the chat, our interim superintendent is with us, Tricia Mcmanus, and she certainly endorses the role of partnership and believes very strongly in partnership and educating the whole child, and that the community centers, like we're talking about, can be great partners in ensuring the needs of students. So thank you for endorsing that and making that a very important part of our conversation. So Mark, as we said earlier, welcome to the school system, but not welcome to Winston-Salem or even the remote learning centers, because I know you were part of getting one set up earlier last year, and also have a number of other connections. Could you briefly describe your role in particular within the school system and the broad goals you're trying to accomplish, and particularly as it relates to our topic at hand, how to draw in the community centers that we're talking about, as well as endorsing strong work in the classroom? What can you tell us?
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. It's great to be with you. And thank you, Sylvia and Dean, for the invitation. And so my position is new to the district. I've been in just about 2 months, and it has been a fast 2 months, but also exciting time here as we get started. The position actually emerged out of the strategic planning effort that was underway in late 2019 and early 2020. And so if you reviewed the new strategic plan, goal 3 is actually all focused around community engagement. And for us, that means focusing on ways to create more welcoming environments and developing new pathways for community partners' involvement. And so for us, community partners is kind of a 3-pronged area. That's students and families, our partners and small businesses and nonprofits, as well as our volunteer population. And so our community engagement office will strive and wholeheartedly to serve as co-creative, collaborative supporters in these efforts to come alongside the wonderful work that is being accomplished by folks at YWCA like Marilyn and Carrie at Turn, and the several others who are supporting our students and families through this time and in the future as we hope we get to a new rhythm and a new normal. So the first step that I'm undergoing with this is looking at an inventory of all the organizations and partners who engage our 81 schools. And from 2018, 2019, that list started at 2,000. And so that's quite an impressive and remarkable list. And so we're very grateful to those partners. And how that will kind of help our work moving forward is to really see where the gaps are. Are there schools who are lacking certain supports? Are there areas that have more supports and could be spread out evenly among other schools in that geographic region? And so it will have a very multifaceted purpose in how it informs how we work toward equity in our district with the work of Effie McMillian and several others. But it also will help us support our school-based staff. Each school has a parent involvement coordinator, and they are remarkable advocates for our families and our district supports. And so we do have a district volunteer coordinator, Jenny Scholl, who will be working with them more directly to better align what those opportunities exist in schools for volunteering once we're back to in-person volunteering. And right now we're also looking at virtual volunteering and what possibilities lie there within our schools, since we do have several students who are still remote and probably will remain remote for some time, either in the school system, in a physical school, or as a part of the virtual academy effort. And so there's things we need to put in place moving forward to holistically support our students on the virtual side. Another benefit of the inventory, like I mentioned before, will be understanding what's missing in our schools and where the schools have resources that could be spread about. And so it's a very exciting effort. It weaves through every aspect of our strategic plan, from student achievement to school climate to human resource development to equity and access, and supports the expansion of AIG and cultural infusion and other access to opportunities like that. And so it's very exciting. And it's work that I have lots of pie in the sky dreams about, but it's one that I'm wholeheartedly engaging, as I said, with our community partners who have boots on the ground in these efforts.
Okay, just one quick question, because we talked earlier about acronyms. What's AIG stand for?
Academically and intellectually gifted. Thank you for pointing that out. I too share in Maryland's. I have had to learn lots of acronyms coming on board. And so I've made a notation to develop a resource for that to help our parents and families understand what we discuss when we say those acronyms.
Well, specifically, some of what we've heard from our previous presenters is that the whole aspect of parent involvement and parent trust and parent welcoming is an issue. And so how are you going to begin addressing that? And again, taking some of the lessons from the remote learning centers and moving forward. I know the school system, and some discussions I've had with the interim superintendent, the school system fully supports expanding and systematizing the work that has happened. So specifically this trust factor, this parent welcoming, talk to us a little bit about what you're learning from that and what may be some changes going forward.
Sure. So we definitely want the voice of community and family heard in what we do. It's at the heart of what we do because they're the ones who are serving with our students and wanting to ensure that they're able to succeed and thrive. And so before I came on board, there were a series of events called Parent Power that were led out of the Communications and Marketing Office. And you may know Sharon Frazier. She helped lead some of those events, and Bree Campbell. And they were really geared toward town hall style meetings to hear and engage families. And there was great feedback received from those sessions. And the wonderful thing about community partners is, as you heard Marilyn and Carrie speak to, is that they're now engaging parents on a whole entirely new different level and gaining insight into their different needs, the variety of their situations. And so for us in our conversations with community partners, that's something we're beginning to ask is, what have you learned from this situation and how are you engaging parents in new ways? I loved hearing how Carrie brings in the principals into her small focus groups so they can engage with parents on a deeper level as well. So these are all things that we're taking into consideration and developing. And so things that I hope that we will implement moving forward with more parent programs once we're able to engage a little more intently around those.
Okay. Do you see that staffing increasing that way, or do you see some of that coming from your role and drawing upon the resources in the community?
Yeah, definitely. We hope to expand some staffing here in the Community Engagement Division to include parent partnerships as well as business partnerships as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There was a question asked in the chat earlier about our how Title I funds are being used to help some of the remote learning centers. I don't know if you're able to answer that, or if Ms. McManus may be able to also add to that in the chat, but happy to have either a chat or a conversation from either one of you about that.
And Sylvia, can I add to that? I'll broaden the question just a little bit. I know, Ms. McManus, you had mentioned wishing there was a remote learning center on every corner to help kids. How can the school system in the future perhaps partner better and support financially and otherwise more of these types of locations in neighborhoods for students to get help?
Yeah, Mark, do you want me to jump in? Are you okay if I jump in?
Yeah.
I know it's not my panel, so I'm sorry.
No, please.
Okay, so I will say, number one, I do not think that funds at this point from Title I or any other, I don't think funds have been provided. I think what's been provided to some of the communities, and now I could be wrong, and I will check from the district, but I think what has been provided were sending out tutors to many of the locations because they didn't have the manpower to actually provide the tutor. So and I'm not sure on the specific locations on this call, we've also sent out breakfast and lunch. So I actually I felt horrible that you all are cooking your own food because we can bring that to you. No? I'm sorry, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Here's one reason why. It provides, we're part of a food program.
Okay.
So that in turn helps. We had one that was a parent here who's now working for us.
Okay.
So that would take away from them.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I was going to tell
But
you.
we receive it. Ms. McManus, the Best Choice Center, which is right across the street from Kennedy, we receive the meals from Kennedy every day.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a responsibility to help with if our students that are enrolled in our schools are being educated outside of our schools, we do have a responsibility to help. And that could include supplies if you all need supplies. It can include books if you need books. I know in some locations, I think we took some furniture to some locations as they needed things. So as far as actual dollars, I have not heard we did that through Title I funds, but nothing is off the table as we move forward. And yes, the vision around a community learning center on every corner is definitely one that I still have, and one that Mark is going to, we talked last week, I think. He's actually going to follow through on that task force we mentioned and start bringing, I've given him the names of people that have reached out so far, but he's going to lead that group to really try to see how we can expand this in a strategic fashion, meaning if I don't think this is about replacing, I think this is about collaborating. And when I typed in the chat box that this is about capitalizing on each other's strengths in order to educate the whole child, I mean that completely. I don't think you can provide an academic education without addressing social emotional. You cannot separate the two. So I actually disagree with the previous superintendent that said that. But I will say that we need to capitalize on the strengths, have a center on every corner so students can access a safe place to go where they do feel connected. You know, I would totally not be telling you the truth if I said I don't want all of our kids back in schools, because I think the amazing education you all are providing them, Carrie and Marilyn, are what every one of our classrooms should look and feel like, and every one of our schools should feel like when someone walks in the door. So that's my vision, but we also need you. So my goal moving forward, and with Mark leading this, is how do we work together to capitalize on the strengths that both bring to the table, while then filling in gaps that might potentially exist. So yeah, I absolutely am 100% thankful to both of you, and thankful to the other remote learning centers, and figuring out how we can expand. That I told Mark, people are going to say that I said I want a remote learning on every corner, and it's true. I said that, so be prepared. So how we got to figure out how to make that happen on behalf of our kids, a safe space in every neighborhood to walk to where you can get academic support, emotional support, food if you need it, whatever you need. I think that is definitely a necessity. So now it's about how to make that a reality. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for adding that. And Mark, it is your responsibility, it sounds like, here in front of everybody here on the call. So what would you say to organizations, faith groups, people here who want to provide those additional resources? We've talked about specifics with these centers, but are you going to be pulling together some kind of framework or network for that? And how are you going to ensure equity so that all schools get what they need instead of those schools that may serve more resourced areas of our community?
Sure. Yeah. And thank you, Ms. McManus, for speaking to that task force, something that I share a lot of passion about. As you mentioned earlier, I helped open a remote learning site in Clemens, and my wife is actually a youth pastor, and she managed a remote learning site too that I volunteered at. And as I've walked around here recently and visited a few remote learning sites, excuse the phone there, I see Ms. Collins here on the call, able to visit the Ardmore location. I just saw such heartwarming experiences of the ways that these tutors and volunteers are engaging our youth. You're sitting with them, helping them learn Spanish by way of French because they have a common connection to that language, doing some extracurricular activities with like weaving fabrics and things that helps with problem solving and skills coordination. This is very beautiful, and it was just such a great thing to see. And so I share that if you want to get an idea of what a remote learning center could operate like, I encourage you to visit one if you haven't. And we're happy to help you coordinate that. If you want to reach out to me, I'll put my information in the chat box. We can definitely get you in touch with a site coordinator so you can see how these sites are operating. I think when you see it, it creates a different feel about actually what is happening. You actually can live and breathe what Marilyn and Carrie are speaking to, that these students are, how they're being engaged. And these sites need support. If it's financial resources to help offset some of the costs for these families. Lots of families are experiencing still loss of work or being out of work because of layoffs. So we definitely want to make sure that that's not a barrier, that these families have some supports they need to financially be able to afford some of these fee-based sites. As far as supplies and all, I encourage you, again, if you want to visit a site or you reach out to a colleague who operates the site, see what they need. Is it help with snacks? Is it pencils and pens? Is it headphones? Is it volunteer power so they can maybe expand their offer, expand their hours? Or have someone there available earlier to help open the site a little earlier so families who have those working hours can get their kids there and they can engage from the beginning of the school day. So I think it's really finding out what you're able to provide to these sites that are currently in existence. And we can learn together about ways we can move forward as we develop this task force for community learning centers and how they need to operate and what hurdles there are to keep them open with the extended hours, with having a variety of opportunities available so that before and after school, they are partnering with these small businesses and nonprofits and other entities who can bring these social and emotional learning activities to them so they have a better mental capacity outside of school and they can engage with their classmates and friends at these centers. One thing I want to speak to that the district has been providing, which Ms. McManus spoke to a little bit, are subs and tutors, our CARES teams, and our Ed Corps members who are just fantastic. These are school-based supports that have really brought a lot of wonderful resources to families and children because they're getting kind of a deeper glimpse into the lives of these families and what they need. And so they have been delivering furniture and beds to families. They've been supporting them with other needs. And so these are great relationships that have been built because of these different resources we have put in place at the district level.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Ed Corps? That's a name I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, so North Carolina Education Corps is a new initiative started last fall. And so districts could opt into being part of the pilot phase of Ed Corps members. And what it does is it allows the district to folks to apply to be a part of the district, and they receive training on behalf of the NC Ed Corps staff. And then they are deployed to the local school districts that they opt into and serve in ways that the school district needs. They earn a livable wage, they get professional development, and it's folks of any age. And so if they're in college looking for like an internship opportunity, if they're retired and want to re-engage in some kind of way, or looking for a second or third opportunity to assist schools in the effort, anything is open. And so there's a website, nceducationcorps.com or .org, that folks can visit to learn more about it. And then our application is right there on that site.
Okay, thank you. And I would ask that you include some of that information in the chat if you can. One more question was asked about, is there a list of the virtual learning centers that the school system is compiling? I know there's been one shared in previous sessions from some of our nonprofit organizations, but is the school system trying to kind of get a handle on what's out there so some of that framework can be built? Yes,
if you go to our website, wsfcs.k12.nc.us, and go to the Our Safe Return page, if you scroll down about 3/4 of the way down, there's a link to community learning centers, and there is a listing and also a map of where they are located in the county. And so there you also see their hours of operation, if they support just middle school and high school or elementary age, and if there is a fee. And so this is updated regularly as we have sites come online. Cheryl Wright is managing some of that for us. And just recently, which I don't think is on the list yet, there is a new remote learning site in Louisville that has opened up at the Louisville Community Center. It was an initiative out of the Interfaith Alliance of Clemens in Louisville, and they're operating as a satellite site of the YMCA.
Okay. And finally, one other question that some have heard that the school system may have to pull some of the tutors and substitutes that had been sent into the remote learning centers back into schools as the numbers of students increase due to health concerns. Some of the staff have had to retire. Is that true? Can you speak to that, or anyone else on the call from the school system speak to that?
So Ms. McMahon, if you want to chime in, but what I understand is that the school-based staff are returning to schools, but we have hired subs and tutors to go back into the remote learning sites to replace those positions, and also our Ed Corps members will be going to the remote learning sites as well.
Okay. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me just be sure that folks are noticing in the chat room several important postings. I want to thank Liz Miller and Chuck Spong for pointing out that they've given you a couple of ways, links for donating financially to either Turn or Best Choice. And also Love Out Loud is happy to amplify and manage some of the volunteer and supply needs, so you can work through them. And we will try to work, Mark, if you'll send to us your list of remote learning centers, we'll try to make sure we're adding any that you are missing that we're aware of, so we can come out with an up-to-date list and the most complete one possible and send it out to everybody participating on the call.
Okay, we want to be sure that we also address a couple of other questions that have popped up in the chat. Is the school system providing able to assist with any transportation needs? I think that's already been spoken to, but just kind of a head nod and answer to that question to the remote learning centers.
Yeah, there's no organized transportation right now from the district level, but that's something as a task force comes together, we will definitely be discussing related to accessibility as we move forward with this effort.
Okay. And then another question, I think to either Carrie or Marilyn, question was, how is testing done at the remote sites that you are part of? How is testing handled there?
Now, if it's after school, well, during our summertime, we have certified teachers that come in and do our academics in the morning time, and then we do enrichment in the afternoon. So during the summer times, to bridge that literacy as well as math, we hire certified teachers. We also hire student teachers or recent graduates of that year from Winston-Salem State, or we've had volunteers to come in also from Wake Forest University. And the teachers will do a pre and post to see. I've also hired a literacy consultant the year before last to come in and train our staff. And she went through each one of them. She was a literacy specialist, came out of Mecklenburg County. I think she's now teaching here in Forsyth County, but she did each one of our students testing that year, which was not this past year, but the year before. So we have teachers to come in and do our EOG boot camps starting usually pre-pandemic, I should say, in February, March, to get them ready for the EOGs. Post-pandemic, they've been doing their iReady testing to see where they are. And we pretty much kind of help them when they are doing their asynchronized time, if they have questions, working with the students then. But while they're in school, they pretty much are in class until 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Okay. Marilyn, anything to add to that?
Yes, the students who are taking tests, who are, of course, virtual, do that under the direction of their teachers in their classrooms. We have in the past been helping prepare students for EOGs, and as you probably know, those did not happen last year, but I'm sure they will be happening this year. One of the things, and I'm really happy that Carrie has had such success with her students making honor roll who haven't made honor roll before, we've seen the opposite. Although I'm very proud of the work that our teachers are doing, we have seen students who were really good students go down significantly. And it's not because the teachers are not helping them. It's not because they're not putting forth the effort, but I guess it's the Zoom fatigue with some of our students. I mean, I've had A and B students who are making C's and D's now, and they are not, it's like they've kind of tuned out. I just had to leave the call a minute ago. I mean, the Zoom, because I got a call from a parent. Her son is here pretending to be on his computer. He hadn't logged in since yesterday. Okay, so we're dealing with that type of issue. It's very difficult when you have, a teacher who's trying to work with a number of students who are all doing different things, all during different times in different classes. So we have seen for a few students, especially some of our students with IEPs, they've done much better in the smaller settings, but some of our other students have not. And it has been really very, very disturbing, because I'm a real competitive person, and I probably shouldn't be saying this in a school system environment, but I am. I'm transparent. Dean knows me. She's known me for a very long time. I want to see our kids do well. And I'm like, well, what is the problem? What aren't we doing? And I observe, and I go in the different classrooms, the students just don't connect as well virtually. I see Ms. McManus shaking her head, as they do, even if our teachers were just teaching them. They don't connect as well virtually as they do in the classroom. And then the issue that was brought to my attention last week by a parent, her son is here virtually. His classmates are in class. He said the teacher just kind of turns them off, and she's teaching the class. Now, this may be some of him. I'm not saying it's 100% like that, but you can't get the same experience if you're away that you have in the classroom. So we have struggled. We have struggled. I am so concerned about what the grades are going to look like, what EOGs are going to look like, and how these students will be ready to go to the next grade. That really bothers me, because I just don't see them at the same level they were pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if I can just say, now, the beginning, we did have that issue. But one of the things that I talked to with our program assistants is, I know we were told early on when we were going to be the RLCs, I know we were told when I asked the question, can we check with teachers and to see if the children are on task and things of that. And they said, no, we weren't able to do that. So I just went the other way and contacted parents and told parents, if you want your teacher to contact me to make sure that your child is on task and doing what they're supposed to be doing, you have to give them authorization. So they send us text message, they send us emails, I send them straight to our site coordinator. But one thing I told our program assistants, we cannot sit there and watch them doing it, because we don't know whether or not they're on or not. So what we do is we walk around, and I've talked to our students, mainly our middle school. Not that we've not had any that struggle, because we have one that was at Paisley, and his mom was saying he is really struggling with virtual learning, and his grades have fallen. And I just talked to mom and said, okay, here's the deal. What did you do differently when he was not doing what he's supposed to do in class? She said, I took his phone. I said, take his phone. Because at the end of the day, she said, well, I wasn't an online person. I said, but he don't need to hear that you're not an online person. Your issues are not his. And his grades started to go up when she took the phone from him. So it is a difference with some of our students, but there's also, we have those that have done very well with it. And it just takes that person having the manpower to do that, though, because like Marilyn was saying, coming in at all different levels, they're going to lunch at different times. Thankfully, one of my site coordinator, actually, we do different roles because we can't afford to have all the different manpowers, but she knew every child's lunch number, ID. Every child, what time they're supposed to be on what. And she worked with the K through second. But when she went out with strep throat, we were on the phone and she can barely talk, but she says, okay, this one should be doing this and this one. So, you know, it's a challenge. It has been a challenge. And I won't say that it's not been a challenge. I wish that when they started, all of them were on the same schedule. When they came back and all of them were all on different schedules, that was hard as heck, trying to meet the needs of all the students. And then when we figured out a way to do it, you know, because they all were eating lunch at different times and they were taking breaks. And then with their science, and I just talked to, when we had meetings, I did have a teacher, and I talked to one of the assistant superintendents. I said, look, when you have teachers that's laying down teaching, the children think they can lay down. She says, okay, that won't happen no more. Who was it? And I told them, because at the end of the day, it's about the children. And, you know, yeah, I came in and the child was laying on the floor from the same teacher that was leaning down on their sofa teaching. And I said, no, sit up, your scholars. So, you know, it takes staying on top of it. It does.
Well, we certainly appreciate your sharing these challenges, those successes and challenges with us today. And I think the key is to keep the communication going. And so keep the partnership going. And that's what we hope, that this transparency and equitable conversation will continue. So just thanks to all of you who were part of our session today. It is 1 o'clock, that bewitching hour. And we want to formally close the program and provide some more information about next month, because we're very excited about that. We will be leaving our call open for a few minutes to stay and share some more helpful information in the chat. But next month on our March session, March the 2nd, Tuesday, March the 2nd, we're excited to announce that our speaker will be Dr. Anthony Graham, Provost of Winston-Salem State University. And he will be presenting on the recent report and recommendations from the statewide task force that he chaired on developing a representative and inclusive vision for education in North Carolina. It's called the Drive Report, and it underscores the need for more educators of color and provides a sense of urgency to improve recruitment and preparation. Some of you may have heard his powerful presentation last week at a forum here sponsored by Action for Equity and other partners. And at that time, Dr. Graham said he was encouraging other community conversations to follow this report and recommendations. So we wanted to provide that venue for that conversation. So we hope that you will join us in March the 2nd, Tuesday, March 2nd at this time, noon to 1 for that. And so thank you again for those who joined us today. Any final comments? Dean, from you?
No, I just want to thank Marilyn and Carrie and Mark for being with us. And we continue to try to plumb the emerging lessons from these remote learning centers, to continue to try to figure what their role will be over the long haul in making sure that our schools are able to reach every student in an equitable way. So thank you for what you already do, and help us keep on thinking of more innovative ways for us to have this neighborhood-based learning, safe environment for every kid. So thank you again. And we look forward to continuing these conversations. Be sure to go in the chat room and on Facebook, and you can get the recording, but the links for how you donate and don't forget, when the pandemic begins to tail off and we can start volunteering, we heard there's a need for reading and math buddies, so be ready to suit up and show up. Right. We're also exploring ways to take some of the lessons from Freedom Schools and see how that can contribute to ensuring high levels of quality and evidence-based practices at every location, because there's definitely a need to coordinate when you may have 20, 30, 40, 50 remote learning centers. How do we make sure they're all accomplishing great things for kids? So thank you again for being part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.